Hello everyone, I'm Shannon Cantner and you're watching a special CMSD TV program, Talk to the CEO, featuring District CEO Eric Gordon. We're here in the studio with him for a Q&A discussing district news and updates. In today's episode, we'll talk about how the district recruits and retains excellent educators, CMSD's focus on parent involvement, new graduation requirements, and more. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Absolutely, good to see you.
Good to see you as well. So CMSD and its partners recently gave out the Excellence in Teaching Awards to 10 teachers who set a standard of excellence that their peers can strive to emulate. But they represent only a fraction of the outstanding educators found in our classrooms across the district. Can you tell viewers about the different strategies the district uses to put the best and brightest in front of our scholars?
Sure, absolutely. So we start out with teachcleveland.org, which is a really aggressive campaign to attract people from across the country, not only to teaching in the city of Cleveland, but living in the city of Cleveland. So in our campaign, we talk about what it's like to be Black or Hispanic in Cleveland, to be gay in Cleveland, to enjoy winter in Cleveland, anything that's going to help people understand what it means to not only, come and teach at CMSD, but to be part of our community. As part of the recruitment strategy, we also have some pipeline programs, and so we have a partnership with Teach for America that's about 5 years old now. We also have developed a great partnership with Cleveland State University called the Cleveland Teaching Fellows, where student teachers actually compete for scholarships to teach in CMSD, which means we get the best and the brightest applying to work here. And we have a partnership also for career changers in the Masters of Urban Secondary Teaching, or the MUST program, also with CSU. Once you're here, we want to help you stay, and so we have Teaching Cleveland, which is a partnership with the Mid-American Conference, the Cleveland and the Gun Foundation, to provide a 3-year experience for all of our new educators, both in their professional growth, but also in creating a social community for our educators. We have MOCA, which is our Men of Color initiative, so that we can entice men of color to work in the district and also have a community of their own. There are very few minority men in education, and so that's important to us. And then we culminate with the Excellence in Teaching Awards, really lifting up our very best educators who give back for a year to make sure newer educators continue to grow in their journey as a teacher here at CMSD.
Sounds like a lot of exciting efforts.
It is a lot of effort, and it's paid off. We have to have the best and the brightest in front of our kids, and we know it, and we're willing to invest to make that happen.
Well, that talent-seeking strategy for the district, which is a key part of the Cleveland Plan, doesn't just stop with the teachers. CMSD believes that principals and other school leaders set the tone for our buildings and play the most important role in educating children. How do we go about making sure our schools have the strongest possible leadership, too?
Well, so there we've really invested deeply in our aspiring principal program. So we find people who may already have their administrative license, or those who aspire but don't have their license, and we actually put them through a year-long training program. It starts with a summer intensive, 6 weeks over the summer, all day, every day, fully paid classroom experiences at our professional center, and then a 1-year mentorship or internship, 4 days a week in our schools and 1 day a week still in classes, and with 2 different experiences. The bulk of the experience is with a leader who has a similar leadership profile to you, so that you're learning from someone who sees leadership in a similar way, but then during what we call Switch Month, switching you to somebody who's an effective leader very different from you, to make sure you see what can leadership look like from another point of view. While we still recruit externally for principals and hire externally, we found our aspiring program has been our single best pipeline to make sure we have great leaders in every building.
Excellent. I know part of that program is also referred to as a boot camp for aspiring principals. It's not an easy program.
No, it's rigorous, and it's designed to make sure that when you're done, you can do this job. And it's not for everybody, and it's okay for aspiring administrators to say, oh, not what I thought. Mm-hmm. We also do a similar investment for assistant principals with a partnership with Cleveland State in our Premier Leadership Academy, where in a less heavy and intensive environment, but more on their own on weekends and in the evenings, we provide a lot of professional development with real meaningful work projects that will enhance their school to help our assistant principals also aspire to the principalship.
Excellent. Switching gears here, CMSD recently celebrated National Parent Involvement Day. How has the district's approach to parental involvement evolved, and what results have we seen?
Well, it's evolved in really one important way. A lot of our parents and families in a very large district, we're sending a signal that while they care about the district, it's their school that they're really interested in. And so we've really worked hard to bring parent engagement back to the school level as its core function. So we have a variety of different kinds of parent organizations, depending on which one best meets the school's needs. We've heavily invested in the parent conference nights and report card pickups, and having programs where parents are learning from teachers, having student-led conferences with parents, having at our high schools more of a arena style where parents don't have to run all over the building following a schedule, but they can sit and meet with teams of teachers. We have also been investing in things that matter to families. So we run bus trips where parents can take not only their high school age student to see a college, but their younger siblings too, and start creating that college exposure. We have classes that we've partnered with Tri-C for college credit, where families can work on enhancing their own parenting skills, because we all know we've had our first newborn, but somehow along the way we forget that it's also our first teenager, it's also our first preteen, and so allowing families to acknowledge that this is the first time I've done this and that it's okay to learn. So a wide array of opportunities, but really at the heart of it is staying at the school level, because that's the place where their child is and that's the place they care about.
Moving on to a topic that all parents certainly care about. In the previous episode of Talk to the CEO, we discussed the state's new rigorous graduation standards. The school board recently passed a resolution encouraging the state to continue alternative pathways to graduation, and there are signs that the state may be willing to do so for at least a year. So talk about a little bit about what that means, why it's so important, and how you would like to see the matter addressed in the long term.
Yeah, so I asked the board, and the board approved a resolution urging the Ohio House and Senate to take action on the graduation criteria that are currently in place for this year's class. And the reason I did that is the aspiration of those graduation requirements is that every student would be absolutely college ready in order to graduate high school. That sounds great in aspiration, but it becomes a zero-sum game. Either you're absolutely ready or you don't graduate. And there's a whole bunch of other space in there. So we have lots of kids who have parts of their readiness and they're near ready, but they're not absolutely ready across the board. Those kids would be gatekeeped out. There were really three problems with the current standards. One is they don't actually work in the way they aspired to in the first place. So for example, passing an AP English class doesn't count towards your graduation requirements. Passing a college class doesn't count toward being college ready. Passing the ACT in English only counts if you also pass it in math at the same time. Things like that. So there were mechanical problems. The second is that the economy is the best it's been in literally a generation, maybe two. And so at the same time that Ohio needs workers who either go to a 2-year or 4-year or technical degree, or those that just simply come out of high school and can still take a high-skill, high-wage, high-demand job. At the same time we need those workers, we're about to implement criteria that gatekeep literally thousands of Ohio's kids from that diploma that creates that access. And then the third, very candidly, and I don't believe this was the intention, but it's another form of institutional racism. We know this is going to have a disparate impact on kids of color, Hispanic children, black children, minority children, children in poverty. And again, I don't believe that was the intent, but we know what the numbers say. And so not only are we gatekeeping kids of all diversities from being able to access employment, we're actually reinforcing and perpetuating, plunging minority families and children who are already in poverty into a long-term life of poverty, and I just can't support that. What do we do? Well, in the short term, we use the criteria from last year, and we need those really for the next 3 years. And the reason for that is because the long-term solution, which the state has been working on, is to adopt a modified set of graduation criteria that account for those challenges. But the way you adopt criteria is for the incoming 9th grade class, and it takes 4 years to get them in place. And so the reason we're requesting a 3-year solution is so that 4th year we can get those real long-term policies in place and move through that class that would be entering 9th grade next year.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm glad we touched on that topic. It's really important.
It's important.
Vital.
It's important for so many reasons,
Yeah.
and it's not that I don't believe in high standards. You know, I have been a champion for very high standards for all children, including Cleveland's children. But here's a place where we've taken standards too far. The standards should say what kids need to aspire to and what schools should be accountable for, but it should not gatekeep in such a dramatic way that it's going to harm the Ohio economy, plunge people into lifelong poverty, and particularly at a point when unemployment is at its lowest. There are not enough workers for the jobs today. We need to make sure that our kids have access to continue the journey even as they have unfinished learning.
You're obviously very passionate about it. And on that note, we also want to use this time for you to speak openly about topics that are on your mind right now. So is there something you want to stress to the public or any message for the community?
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot going on. So I've been really urging the community to download the CMSD app. It's a way where we can continue to keep families informed through push notices. It also has access to information about all of our schools. It has our news feed, so to see these stories and other good stories about the district that often don't get told. It has department information. It has links to our transportation. And on that end, I would also ask families who use Yellow Bus Transportation to download our new bus tracker. It's new and improved, and it also now pushes a notice saying your bus is almost here, make sure you're at the corner, things of that nature. Or in the upcoming weather, your bus is running slow, so don't go outside too early, right? So using those technology tools and giving us feedback to build them out and make them stronger would be one. Secondly is we're heading into second semester. It's already the holiday time, and we need every single student completing college applications, making sure they have their FAFSAs in place. I've mentioned before a citywide effort called Say Yes to Education. We want to be ready to take advantage of it when we finally reach that point where they can announce it. And I don't know when that'll be yet, but I do know that I want every kid to have college applications for in-state public colleges, 2-year, 4-year, or Pell-eligible certificates, and that FAFSA in place so that if we can do those scholarships this year, kids can take them this year. And then going back to our high school graduation, making sure that we're pursuing those alternative paths of service hours, projects, culminating projects, strong attendance. Those are all good things for students to be doing, whether we get those pathways or not. But if we get the pathways, we need them in place. And so making sure families are doing that as well.
Excellent. Since our last episode, we also received some viewer questions, so
Sure.
we'll give you a couple of those
That's
now.
great. Let's keep those coming. Yes.
It is great, yeah. Nakia asks, I was wondering if CMSD can get some Spanish or Mandarin learning classes in the elementary schools.
Yeah, so one of the things we know about language acquisition is that it's so much easier in the primary grades. The challenge for us, very candidly, is scaling it in all of our buildings because language acquisition is personnel. It's world language teachers. We do have some schools that do have Spanish and some schools that have Mandarin and a couple that have both. We don't yet have it at a citywide strategy. As we continue to look forward to upcoming investments, it's places like that, world languages, the arts, activities, more activities for kids. That's where I hope our future investments go as we continue to seek community support.
Great. We have one more from Alicia. What are you going to do about discipline in buildings? She specifically wonders about consequences for negative and disruptive behavior.
Yeah, so this is an ongoing issue when you work with children, right? So I've been in this field for 20-some years, and it's always been an issue, right? And it was an issue when I was a kid. The good news is that we have made huge progress on reducing those serious safety issues that used to plague the district, used to keep us in the news all the time. The bad news is kids still get disruptive, they still make bad choices, and we have to address it. So we're going to first continue to implement our humanware strategies, our planning centers, our student support teams, those kinds of things. We also have an ongoing committee that's looking at our code of conduct to make sure that there are reasonable consequences for behaviors. That team's actually right now exploring restorative practices as another tool that we can support for our schools, and where necessary we will use suspension or expulsion if students do things that are so egregious that they simply can't be in school. But it's going to take our entire school community working together, our educators working with our families, working with our kids, so that they are rewarded for the right behaviors, the positive behaviors, and they're redirected and held responsible for their negative behaviors.
Great. Well, anything else that you want to share today before we close out this episode?
Well, I just want to wish all of our CMSD community great holidays. We're heading into the holiday season. We'll be into second semester when we return from winter break. So I just want all of our families to enjoy some family time and thank them for their continued support of CMSD.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for taking the time out and being here with us today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Thank you. And if you have a question for the CEO, you can email newstips@clevelandmetroschools.org, and you might just see it in the next episode. In the meantime, you can follow the CEO and all of his exciting things around the district on Twitter @EricGordon_CEO. And to watch this whole program and all the other episodes and for more programming like this, make sure to visit the CMSD News Bureau at clevelandmetroschools.org/news. We'll see you next time.